It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, I got to tell you, I've been in some pretty interesting places these last few days. But today, I'm sitting here with Mike, and we're sitting in front of Lake Tahoe. What a beautiful picture that is. Oh, my gosh. Jeremiah School told me that I should talk to Mike because Mike heads up the compliance business over there at Dot Security. And, you know, I got to tell you, when I learned a little bit about Mike, I'm thinking, man, Dot Security is doing some amazing things. Impact Network's doing some amazing things. I don't have to tell you all that I'm a fan of Impact and what they're doing. But when you talk to the people, when you listen to what they say, and you realize these are some really talented people, and it's probably what contributes to the company's success. So in saying all of that, I want to introduce Mike to you. Mike, just tell us a little bit about yourself. They brought you on to head up this compliance business, but start out a little bit with your background and why they chose you.
Well, they chose me, I think, for a variety of reasons, but mainly because of the breadth of services. So not just working with the big guys and the small guys, but also coming from different areas in industry, including as a partner at a public accounting firm and even working for the US government after I was a veteran. And it all helped to assess situations in the real world, meaning not just an IT problem, but how does it impact everyone that gets involved with security or compliance. It's kind of an A to Z problem for a lot of different companies.
Well, compliance is obviously important, and it's a huge investment for a company that is compliant oriented or needs the compliance. So we have HIPAA compliance, all these different compliances. And what's the difference between how you're structuring to go into the marketplace with the compliance deliverable from DOT as to maybe some of the other folks out there? What are you guys trying to build? Because, you know, at Impact, at Dot Security, and everything this company does, there's always a differentiator. What do you think it's going to be?
Well, I think the big differentiator is instead of having compliance as an add-on service as your relationship grows as an IT organization, we do a lot of things in parallel. And an example would be working in public accounting. We could advise, but we couldn't necessarily work on the day-to-day. Mm-hmm. With the partnership between Impact and DOT as a security operations center and compliance kind of sandwiched in between, we could have the day-to-day relationship. So the foundational pieces are there for a company, and with compliance, we can not only take in all the different requirements that are in the world, mm-hmm. and work them, basically remediate things and fix things as your operation is going. So there's always going to be business continuity. There's always going to be disaster recovery if things go bad. And with the Security Operations Center, it's great. So compliance kind of plays in the middle and ties a lot of those day-to-day pieces and the high-end Security Operations Center together.
And a lot of compliance customers, that could be all that you provide them. Is that correct? Like, I mean, they could be a company that obviously they don't want to, I hate to say it this way, but they don't want the fox guard the hen house, or they'll say, we can't have our MSP do our compliance work, so we want to hire you. Is that
sure
still going on in the market?
Absolutely. You can have us as kind of a standalone expert in a lot of different pieces, but the great thing is with the experience of our staff all the way up through the partners at the firm is we have experience working with the MSPs. We have experience working with a one-person shop in IT, and we also have the experience upstream. So they might work underneath a prime contractor, mm-hmm. or really have their hands full. So we can have a dynamic relationship and not just have it sandwiched in between Impact or DOT, so we can stand alone very easily.
So Jeremiah told me that they're going to probably start the channel program. Actually, he didn't say probably, he said he was going to start the channel programs. January 26th was their due date for that. Do you see the compliance deliverable being through a dealer partnership? Do you think they'll bring you leads, or will you develop a system for them to do that?
Absolutely. I think the challenge that a lot of business operators, not just the owners, but the people that operate these businesses have, is sometimes there's new requirements that are thrown in all the time. Mm-hmm. So whether you're in a geography like Europe that has GDPR with general data and mm-hmm. their requirements, or you have HIPAA, as you had mentioned, or SOC 2 reporting, there's many requirements that can be built into that channel program, and also things added on a la carte. Like, for instance, if you're a larger organization and you work with the Defense Department, we can have a component that covers frameworks that are IT, mm-hmm. operational, and many pieces in between. So it'll work perfectly in that environment.
Well, I mean, the reality of it is that a lot of these organizations, even the more mature MSPs, they just don't have the bandwidth to build an infrastructure like dot security built, to be quite honest. And so outsourcing is a great way to do that, as long as they're the right partners. And I know you guys are going to be picky who partner could even be. But
Right.
You said something in the beginning when you were introducing yourself, and you were talking about how you worked at a big accounting firm. And you know, I did an episode, one of my shows, I don't know, probably 3 years ago, and I said, hey, don't go out and buy an MSP, go out and buy a CPA firm, because if you buy the CPA firm, you're going to get intellect that'll be extremely valuable. And by the way, the CPA industry as a whole is getting into cybersecurity and IT services. So explain that a little bit, and you don't need to mention the firm you work for, but I'm just curious, the firm that you were with, how in depth are they in cybersecurity?
Well, they're in depth, but I think the challenge with some of the larger organizations, including the ones that I've worked with in the past, because they were CPA firms, they had certain restrictions and kind of a threshold of risk.
Okay.
They can consult, but they couldn't necessarily work and build the foundation that a lot of organizations needed to have in place. And the challenge with that is, without the foundation, it's very difficult to add all these other pieces, compliance, security operations center. You end up overspending because you're just using these people for one thing. I think with our solution, with having the base, the foundation with Impact, the day-to-day, and the ability to not only see an impressive security operations center, but a group of people that come from different industries. Public accounting is one, federal government and the intelligence agencies. You're talking about people that can service the small to mid-market that come from these tier one organizations. And that's not only the past, but I think definitely the future for recruiting for Impact and DOT. You're going to see tier one talent day to day servicing you.
That's pretty cool. They're coming from those different verticals. It's
You
almost
bet.
like their marketing business.
Yes.
If you want to have a really full-fledged marketing company, you need the experts that understand hospitality industry. You need the experts that understand the manufacturing industry. So
Right.
same type of principle.
Yep.
How many people do you think you're going to have on your team, and how many are on the team now as you're really getting here, I mean, you just basically got in here and you're doing this, but where are we at?
So team-wise, there's existing clients that we have right now working with the defense industry, and we've had HIPAA clients and many others. But one of the things I talked to Frank Kuko, our chairman, as well as the other leaders, is I could imagine and foresee an entire large building like we have all over the country filled with purely compliance folks. The phone might ring in a shared service environment. You might be answering a question on the NIST framework for cybersecurity, and you might also be cross-trained to be able to talk about HIPAA or talk about UK cyber or GDPR. So a lot of our folks are going to be cross-trained in hybrids in these different environments. So I can envision our firm and the company overall building 100 or 200 compliance experts within the next few years. I don't think that's unrealistic.
Well, first of all, if it's part of the Kuko vision,
It's going to be big. Yeah, so you're going to have the support there.
and he will build the infrastructure, but he will also have a point in time when he'll demand that the infrastructure kind of works out, and that's never
bet.
been a failure of his. So I'm sure he's confident in you, just like anybody else that works here. It's exciting stuff. You know, you came out of this big environment. You're in a small business. I mean, even though if you, in the big scheme of thing, as an MSP, you know, I think they bill over 100 million just in the MSP space, and then their print business. You know, you're talking about a $220 million company. That's a small business from where you come from. But you know, what's the biggest advantage you see for yourself?
For myself is to be able to take a $220 million company and develop roadmaps to get to that 500 million, to get to that $1 billion, just by creating a team that's led by the foundation. So instead of talking about the big fancy cybersecurity, let's work the same things that the Impact and DOT family have put together over the last few years, but roadmap it a little bit more focused and aggressively towards certain clients. And you have to keep in mind, a lot of these industries, including defense, which I come from defense as well, are filled with small to medium-sized businesses. They're not filled just by the big primes like the Lockheeds and Northrops. So having that experience with the different size organizations allows me to roadmap towards the bigger ones, and I think that's the next phase of our growth, is working with a lot higher volume, number of clients, and also greater number of services that we offer from day one.
It's pretty exciting stuff.
Oh, it's awesome.
You definitely came to the right place, because it will be exciting, I assure you. Is there anything you want to add before we end? And I'm definitely going to have you back on. I'll have you on the show, because I'm going to keep track of this whole process to January 2026. And I'm super excited about the compliance piece. That's a big need.
I don't think that's ever been said, that people are excited about compliance. It's kind of like audit.
We just said it.
Right. Well, I think the good thing about the environment that we have at Impact and DOT is that it's energizing, because you're working with a lot of very smart people at different stages of their careers, but everyone feeds upon each other. So I think the growth organically, taking existing people that come from maybe the impact side and saying, I'm very interested in what you guys are doing, and developing training for that, that's the most exciting. So not just pulling people from the outside, but looking from within, people that have not just taken a sip of the punch, but they understand their opportunities. And the opportunity, I think, is going to be the biggest plus.
Well, our industry, the Kuko's legacy, if you will, when it all started, it was a very product-centric industry. We sold a product that we serviced, kind of thing. And over the last few years, the industry as a whole had to learn how to sell their intellect, and more importantly, make sure they got the right price for it. And then on top of that, they better bring the right intellect.
You bet.
But today, intellect's very valuable. People need this stuff, and you can tell me if I'm right here, but isn't the federal government about ready to mandate more around cybersecurity? Absolutely.
Yeah. And with not just the threat actors from the nations, the folks that we read about, but a lot of it is internal to the U.S. You have a lot of competitors that are trying to steal information to, get to the impact, the pedigree names in a very short amount of time by taking that intellectual property away. So it's not only something that's going to be mandated, but it's something to where it's a competitive advantage that you can have. If you are squared away, if you have compliance figured out, and that's just part of your DNA, you could actually lead with that as you're talking to potential customers. And there you're talking about lower risk. You could potentially get a lower rate on your insurance because you're lower risk. Banks might have a quicker look at you for a line of credit. So positive compliance and positive operations can really get you to a better place and develop your business if you do it right.
Well, I'm excited to watch this journey.
Absolutely,
all
it's
the
exciting.
journeys here at Impact.
Yep.
Because, Mike, I don't know if you know this, but everybody that knows me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all later.